What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today Dad decided he wanted to be back in on the action, so Dad's bought himself a little bit of a project, so we're going to be making a little bit of content out of this. But there, Trans Am
Poncho.
not bad. Little injected 350 Chev Turbo 700, 10-bolt rear end. Needs a bit of work, needs a bit of tidying up.
Already right-hand drive converted.
Yeah, right-hand drive. The bloke that owned it, that we bought it off, he pulled apart all the injection manifold because he had a fuel leak. His idea was that he was going to put a low-rise manifold on it and put carby back on it. Obviously that's not what we're about. We're going to see if we can get this injection system back working, see if we can get it back together and find the leak and sort that out. But yeah, it was a pretty good price. Not a bad car for the price. Needs a bit of work, obviously. Seats need to be retrimmed, wheel needs to be retrimmed, roof lining needs to be done. The paint on it is pretty shocking, but obviously we can certainly change that. That's not an issue. But yeah, so got the wing for it over there as well. Just been taken off, but hey, not a bad little rig. Pretty cool, unusual sort of car, I suppose. Not exactly the most sought after shape, or not exactly the most sought after era. It's a 1987, but being how late it is, GM were really working towards getting the F-body platform pretty well sorted at this point. I've had a look, I've jumped underneath, I've measured the sway bars front and rear. Also, you'll see in the dash, it's actually got this performance suspension. Also for 1987, the tuned port fuel injection version of the 350 was only available with the auto, which is a Turbo 700. But basically, from everything I've measured, from the suspension little badge in the dash, measuring the sway bars and the rest of the stuff, from what I can figure out, it's like a WS6 trim optioned Trans Am from factory. They pretty much came with like a quick ratio steering box, bigger sway bars, just a few little upgrades, things that like the Trans Am GTA came standard. But yeah, so as much as it's not exactly the most sought after shape, as far as a classic point of view goes, GM by this point were really getting this car sorted. And they are very easy to turn into very quick cars because they're fairly light and they're built to just hook up and go, and they're meant to handle quite well. So at this point we're not quite sure what we're going to do with this thing. Obviously option A is tidy it up, get it running, drive it around for a bit. We'll get the interior retrimmed where we need to, and basically just drive it around and see if anyone wants to buy it. Hopefully we can capitalize on basically the investment on it. And if we can do that, we may do that, and obviously put a bit more money into this place or whatever. But if no one wants to pay for it, eventually down the road, we're actually thinking about maybe putting like a turboed iron block LS in it, and basically, go racing. Yeah, build a 9-inch for it. Like the car, it's in the States. There's a lot of people out there that do it, specifically because F-bodies were designed, and they basically the chassis hooks up well. They're just a fast car when done properly. So
Like you said, they're not a very, I wouldn't call it a very pretty car, but they're very pointy and very slippery. So like good aero. Good aero.
The trailing arms as well are quite long, and if you look at just the geometry of the rear end, because they're a solid rear end, they're a 10-bolt, and they just look like they're designed to hook up. And if you look at these guards, look at how big the guards are, not only just diameter, but also just the size of the guard. Like, you could put so much rubber under there without a lot of modification. So you could really get this car set up, hooking up well. And if you had a big horsepower sort of setup in it, I'm sure you could get really impressive times out of it. The other thing is they only weigh, as much as they look like a big giant heavy car, they actually only weigh 1,400 kilo, according to Wiki. Wikipedia has stated 1,400 kilo. Which is basically as much as any of your XR6 Turbo or your Commodore, Club Sport, anything like that. It's around the same sort of weight, although as you can see, I reckon The way this chassis is set out, you get better weight transfer and better hookup out of it. So basically, we're just going to start making content. We're going to make content of it, getting it running. We're just going to try and buff and polish and block back this paint. It's acrylic paint apparently, so we can block it back, polish it up, see what comes out, see what sins we can hide, and basically just tidy it up. See if anyone's looking for something like this for what we want to sell it for, and basically if we can't sell it, we'll go racing. Yeah, so didn't cost a shitload, don't have a lot invested in it. It's Dad's project at the end of the day, so at the end of the day it's up to Dad what he wants to do with it. For now he just wants to drive it and see if he likes driving it, so priority at the moment is to get it registered, or get it on the road, get it running, get it driving. But anyway, so yeah, look forward to another bit of a project that will be coming on the channel. Another bit of a project car that we can work on. But anyway, I gotta go back to the coast. I gotta go back to work this week for a bit, so I'm gonna leave yous with Rex. Rex hasn't got much work on this week, so Rex is gonna work on trying to get it running, trying to get that stuff done. So I'll leave you with him and make a little bit of a video out of it. So cheers guys, I'll catch you later.
Righto guys, it's been really hot here today, so we haven't really done much. Haven't touched the car yet, but we're gonna have a crack at sorting this thing out. Went down yesterday afternoon and got the wheels off my 1-tonner, the blue one, just to chuck them on and see how they look. And safe to say it sort of changes the attitude of the entire car. Turns out these rears are damn near perfect. Fill out the guards, make it look a lot tougher than it did before. We've just got that wing sitting there to see how it looks. Chuck the front wheels on as well. So it's entirely possible in future this thing may end up with pretty much the exact same wheels. If we were going to build something tough out of it and take it racing, that'd pretty much be the exact size tyre I'd run. That's a 275 on a 8.5 inch or 8 inch wide, I think these wheels were, if I remember right. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure they're a 4.5 inch out and 3.5 in, I believe. But yeah, looking pretty cool. So the next thing we're going to do, as Max explained yesterday, we were told the previous owner it had a fuel leak somewhere on the injection system, so he started pulling it apart. So first step we want to do is just try and get all of this back together. See the old manifold there. A lot of these bolts are actually missing, so it's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass. We're going to have to find some bolts, and we're going to have to figure out how all this stuff actually goes back together and see if we can reassemble it and try and get it running, and we can see if the motor's any good. We were told that the motor was perfectly fine, so here's hoping that it goes back together alright, and I'll find the fuel leak and just fix it and we'll get it running. After that, the plan is basically I want to get it onto the hoist and get it off the ground and have a look underneath it, and we'll see what it looks like underneath and see what work needs to be done to get it up and running. Okay, so I've started pulling this apart. We've got our intake manifold here. I'll just turn that around, so as you can see there's your fuel rail, fuel reg, a few other bits and pieces. So it is missing a few bolts out of this thing. On this side it was as well. Unfortunately, so it's all M8 stuff. Unfortunately, these bottom ones that go there are quite long, and I don't have any bolts for that. So for now, I'll probably get away with just putting the others in. It should seal it enough. As long as there's no vacuum leak, it'll be alright. One thing I am going to do though, as you can see, that's your intake runners. They run across the manifold and into the head. Because someone else has pulled this thing apart, it's a real pain in the ass putting things back together when you're not the one that pulled them apart, but we're going to persevere. Because this thing was sitting, like I found bolts, some of the intake bolts down in these little nooks and crannies and things like that. I have had a look down these runners with the torch and I can't see anything in there, but given that this thing's been sitting, someone else has pulled it apart, you don't know what anyone else has done to it. So just to be careful, I'm going to use this magnet and just stick it down each runner, just in case there's a nut, a bolt. If someone's dropped something down there, I'd rather not take the risk of possibly really doing some damage to valves or pistons or something if someone has dropped something down there. So just a good idea to be pretty thorough and just careful with things like that, especially if you're dealing with something that someone else has pulled apart. We have no idea what they've done. They could have dropped anything down there. So hopefully if there is anything in there, the magnet will pick it up and we should be right to go. But that's about all I can do to be safe without actually completely dismantling it. It doesn't look like there's anything in there. I think it will be all right, but I am going to check it just to be doubly sure. Okay, nearly 6 o'clock, but we have life. So I've only sort of just jerry-rigged it back together enough, like nothing's sort of set in there permanently, but just enough to start it and run it. It lives. Motor sounds good, there's no rattles or knocks or anything. There's some exhaust leaks and stuff to sort out, but other than that, the motor itself actually sounds pretty healthy. Woo! Just blowing a bit of smoke, but that's to be expected. So we've got a small success at least. There's a bit of a coolant leak that leaked into the manifold there before, but you get that. At this point I haven't been able to spot this supposed fuel leak, but yeah, we'll worry about that later. Day 2 of the Trans Am. We have actually had it running, got it running, jumped it off the Deo. The auto had no oil in it, chucked some oil in that and drove it for just a lap around the shed just to check the auto. Auto seems good, changes gears, hooks up like it's supposed to. Should be pretty right. We've chucked it up on the hoist. First thing you notice is some very horrifically loose front wheel bearings, and we found the exhaust leaks. They are everywhere, and it's like a single, the exhaust comes under there, merges on this side, and it's like has this reducer here and is like a single 2-inch right out to this muffler, where there are some more exhaust leaks into these just ridiculous looking tailpipes. So yeah, it's pretty sad. Another cool feature too, if you want, yeah, you just general good practice just to zip tie your brake lines, handbrake cable just to your spring. I mean, what else would you do with it? And yeah, these real cool rear springs that are nice and secure. So yeah, having a good old time. It's looking pretty sweet at the moment. Yeah, let's see what else we can find.